The industrial miracle that changed world history began with laughter in Berlin. A German official examined intelligence reports with pure disdain. These Americans thought they could frighten the Reich with impossible promises. The reports described Roosevelt's audacious demand to Congress. America would build 50,000 aircraft every year. The German leadership scoffed at such ridiculous propaganda. "These fools understand nothing about war production," the Reich's marshal declared to his assembled staff. Converting automobile plants into aircraft factories required far more than simple assembly lines. The Americans would learn this harsh lesson quickly. But across the Atlantic, one man was already proving the Germans catastrophically wrong. William Knudsen had abandoned his fortune to serve America. The Danish immigrant earned just $1 per year as Roosevelt's production chief. His background at General Motors would soon orchestrate humanity's greatest industrial transformation. American factories didn't just meet Germany's dismissed target of 50,000 planes annually. They exceeded it by nearly double within 4 years. Simultaneously, these same facilities supplied 2 separate wars across opposite sides of the planet. The challenge that sparked German ridicule emerged on May 16, 1940. German tanks raced through French countryside as Roosevelt addressed Congress. Standing before the assembled representatives, the president made his stunning declaration. "This nation must gear itself up to produce at least 50,000 planes yearly," Roosevelt announced. Even America's allies responded with deep skepticism to such astronomical numbers. The statistics seemed to justify their doubt. America had manufactured merely 3,611 military aircraft during 1939. The Army Air Corps possessed 1,700 combat planes. Many were already obsolete. Roosevelt demanded production increases of 14 times current capacity. One man could achieve this impossible feat. Presidential advisor Bernard Baruch gave the same answer 3 times when asked who could deliver such production. First Bill Knudsen, second Bill Knudsen, third Bill Knudsen. Knudsen sacrificed his $300,000 corporate salary to serve his adopted homeland. He brought automotive mass production methods directly into aircraft manufacturing. Revolutionary changes began immediately throughout American industry. December 1941 arrived with American factories producing 2,000 military aircraft monthly. This represented a 20-fold increase from just 2 years earlier. Ford Motor Company unveiled plans for their massive Willow Run bomber facility in Michigan. Boeing expanded their Seattle operations dramatically. Douglas Aircraft recruited thousands of new workers daily. The sleeping arsenal of democracy was finally awakening to its true potential. Nazi leadership dismissed American capabilities through both racial hatred and deliberate ignorance. General Friedrich von Bötticher served as Wehrmacht military attaché in Washington from 1933 through 1941. His accurate reports described American industrial mobilization in precise detail. His December 1940 cable contained a stark warning. "American war production will reach unimaginable heights," he reported to Berlin. German leadership dismissed these urgent warnings as defeatist exaggeration from a weak-minded officer. Bötticher met Hitler directly in February 1939 to discuss American industrial potential. The Führer ignored intelligence assessments completely. Instead, he ranted endlessly about American racial degeneracy and social weakness. Americans were half Judaized and half negrified, Hitler proclaimed with absolute certainty. Such a mongrel population could never sustain serious warfare against pure Aryan forces. This ideological blindness would ultimately prove fatal to the Reich. The prejudice infected every level of German military thinking. Luftwaffe intelligence dismissed reports of women entering aircraft factories. They interpreted female employment as obvious signs of American desperation rather than democratic strength. Reports arrived describing factories operating 3 complete shifts around the clock. German analysts assumed these accounts were gross exaggeration. The Nazi worldview simply couldn't accommodate American industrial reality. Ford's Willow Run plant embodied American ambition in concrete and steel. Construction began on farmland on April 18, 1941. It became the world's largest factory contained under one roof. The facility covered 3.5 million square feet of floor space. Its assembly line stretched exactly 1 mile from end to end. Charles Sorensen, Ford's production chief, made an audacious promise to skeptical observers. Willow Run would build 1 complete B-24 Liberator bomber every single hour. Other factories across America managed 1 bomber per day. Critics called this promise pure fantasy from automotive dreamers. Initial results appeared to prove the skeptics completely correct. The first bomber, completed in September 1942, required complete rebuilding before flight. Quality control failures reached 50% of all production. By February 1943, Willow Run produced merely 56 bombers monthly. The promise had been hundreds. Critics mockingly dubbed the facility Will It Run instead of Willow Run. But Ford engineers refused to surrender to apparent impossibility. They broke the B-24's 488-193 individual parts into manageable sub-assemblies. Revolutionary hydraulic riveting tools replaced hand methods. Prefabricated wiring harnesses eliminated time-consuming individual wire installation. Moving assembly lines brought work to stationary workers. The engineers accommodated 578 separate design changes during 1943 alone. Production never stopped despite constant modifications. September 1943 brought monthly production to 148 bombers. December reached 365. The breakthrough arrived in April 1944 when Willow Run produced 428 B-24s in 1 month. 1 bomber rolled off the line every 63 minutes, 24 hours daily. This single American factory was outproducing Germany's entire aviation industry. The impossible had become routine reality. German pilots recognized American production superiority during the Tunisia campaign. Major Johannes Steinhoff commanded JG-77 Fighter Squadron. His December 1942 notes revealed growing concern. "American pilots are no longer amateurs," he observed with grudging respect. "Most disturbing, there are more of them appearing every single day." Fresh replacements arrived faster than losses accumulated. The revelation accelerated dramatically throughout 1943. January 27th marked the first American bombing raid on Germany itself. 64 bombers attacked Wilhelmshaven naval facilities. By October, during Black Thursday at Schweinfurt, Americans could lose 60 B-17s and replace them within 2 weeks. The mathematical reality had become absolutely inescapable for German commanders. During Big Week, February 20th to 25, 1944, the 8th and 15th Air Forces mounted 3,500 bomber sorties against German aircraft production facilities. The Luftwaffe lost between 262 and 355 fighters during these raids. More critically, approximately 100 irreplaceable veteran pilots died. General Adolf Galland reported devastating statistics to Göring. Germany was losing 200 fighters monthly while producing only 1,000 replacements. America was producing 2,500 fighters monthly while losing just 400. The arithmetic spelled inevitable doom. Major Heinz Baer, one of Germany's top aces with 220 confirmed victories, described a January 1944 mission over Brunswick. The bomber streams stretched from horizon to horizon in every direction. At least 700 flying fortresses and liberators filled the sky, he recalled. "We were 8 fighters against hundreds of bombers." The situation was absolutely hopeless from the start. By 1944, American aircraft production reached truly staggering proportions never seen in human history. That single year alone saw factories produce 96,270 complete aircraft. This included 16,048 four-engine bombers, 35,543 fighters, and 22,591 multi-engine aircraft. This 1 year's American production exceeded Germany's entire wartime output of approximately 94,677 aircraft. The disparity transcended simple numbers to represent systemic superiority. Each American bomber carried 13 50-caliber machine guns with thousands of ammunition rounds. German fighters increasingly launched missions with partial ammunition loads due to shortages. American bombers featured powered gun turrets, advanced bomb sights, and sophisticated navigation equipment. German fighters often flew without functioning radio communication. Boeing's Seattle Plant 2 was producing 16 B-17 Flying Fortresses daily by May 1944. Douglas Aircraft had grown from 68 employees in 1936 to 167,000 workers across 9 separate facilities. North American Aviation manufactured 551 P-51 Mustang fighters monthly. Lockheed achieved production of 1 P-38 Lightning every 90 minutes, while implementing 2,127 combat-driven modifications based on pilot feedback. Supporting industries matched this incredible pace throughout America. General Motors produced 57,658 aircraft engines under licensing agreements. Packard built 55,503 Rolls-Royce Merlin engines for fighters and bombers. Alcoa increased aluminum output by 600% over pre-war levels. Dow Chemical expanded magnesium production from 6 million pounds annually to 333 million pounds. The transformation of America's workforce completely shattered Nazi preconceptions about democratic societies. Women comprised less than 1% of aircraft workers in 1941. By 1943, they represented 65% of the total workforce. 310,000 women worked in aircraft production by peak production. At Douglas Long Beach facility, 22,308 of the 41,600 employees were women. The original Rosie the Riveter drove 3,000 rivets per shift at Willow Run, with 99.5% accuracy. Women inspectors at Douglas facilities reduced defect rates from 3.2% to 0.3%. Ford redesigned tools for smaller hands, inadvertently improving overall efficiency. Lighter pneumatic tools reduced worker fatigue dramatically. Better positioned workstations decreased workplace injuries significantly. German intelligence interpreted female employment as obvious desperation. A captured Luftwaffe report dismissed these workers as temporary, predicting inevitable quality collapse. Instead, precision manufacturing improved consistently. Women excelled at detailed work, especially instrument wiring and quality inspection. Their integration represented democratic strength, not weakness as Germans assumed. As American production soared beyond all expectations, Germany retreated into complete fantasy. Göring authorized the Jägernaut program in February 1944, dispersing production into 729 underground facilities using slave labor. The Mittelbau-Dora complex employed 60,000 prisoners under horrific conditions. 20,000 died from malnutrition, disease, and exhaustion. These underground factories produced more defects than functional aircraft. Slave laborers deliberately sabotaged components whenever possible. Transportation between dispersed facilities caused constant delays. Quality control collapsed completely under these conditions. The entire Mittelbau-Dora complex produced fewer engines monthly than Ford's single Chicago plant. Meanwhile, American innovation accelerated at unprecedented rates. Boeing developed modular B-29 Superfortress construction across 4 different facilities. The pressurized B-29 cost $605,000 each, and incorporated technology Germany couldn't match in prototypes. By early 1945, America was producing 129 B-29s monthly. June 6, 1944 demonstrated the culmination of American production superiority. The D-Day invasion employed 11,590 Allied aircraft against only 319 German sorties. This represented 36-to-1 air superiority through industrial dominance alone. This wasn't merely tactical advantage, but complete industrial annihilation. Between January and May 1944, preparatory bombing dropped 145,000 tons on German targets. This exceeded all German bombing of Britain throughout the entire war. Transport aircraft delivered 3 complete airborne divisions in one day. They used more planes than Germany's entire transport fleet ever possessed simultaneously. By December 1944, single bombing raids involved 1,200 heavy bombers escorted by 900 fighters. P-51 Mustang fighters possessed range to reach Poland from England. Their performance matched any German opponent. Most importantly, they existed in quantities making losses completely irrelevant. German pilots called them Indians because they seemed to swarm everywhere simultaneously. As inevitable defeat approached, even Nazi leadership acknowledged the production catastrophe. In December 1944, Galland wrote in his personal diary with brutal honesty, "Göring's promises about Luftwaffe superiority now seem like criminal delusions. We fight the world's greatest industrial power with empty rhetoric." Rommel told his staff before D-Day about American material superiority. "The Americans can lose 10 tanks for every one we destroy and still overwhelm us completely. When they land, they will come with such material superiority that no position can possibly hold." Even Hitler admitted the truth to Speer in January 1945. We should have listened to Böttischer's reports more carefully. Their industrial potential was ultimately decisive. While we built hundreds, they built tens of thousands. Albert Speer later testified that American bombing reduced German production by 35% for tanks, 31% for aircraft, and 42% for trucks. He stated unequivocally that American attacks following a definite system of assault on industrial targets caused the complete breakdown of German armaments production. Germany's Me-262 jet fighter became operational in mid-1944. It represented genuine technological innovation, flying 100 miles per hour faster than any Allied fighter. Hitler and Göring believed this wonder weapon could restore air superiority despite numerical inferiority. But Germany produced just 1,130 Me-262s total throughout the war. Never more than 200 remained operational simultaneously. Engines required complete overhaul every 10 flying hours. Critical materials remained unavailable, forcing inferior substitutions that reduced performance. America, meanwhile, had begun jet development in 1942. While the Bell P-59 Era Comet proved inferior to German jets, Lockheed's P-80 Shooting Star surpassed any German jet in performance. The P-80 entered production before war's end. American industrial depth allowed simultaneous pursuit of multiple advanced technologies. This remained a luxury Germany couldn't afford under constant bombardment. The contrast epitomized the production war's ultimate outcome. Germany's technological superiority in jets meant absolutely nothing against America's ability to produce thousands of conventional fighters while simultaneously developing next-generation aircraft. Quality without quantity proved completely worthless in total war. Hermann Göring's arrest on May 8, 1945, by elements of the U.S. 36th Infantry Division marked his first confrontation with reality. Initially defiant at the interrogation facility in Augsburg, he maintained German technology had been superior. Only overwhelming numbers had overcome German excellence, he claimed stubbornly. His subsequent transfer to Camp Ashkan in Luxembourg brought intensive interrogation. The facility specialized in holding high-ranking Nazi prisoners for detailed questioning. In July 1945, Major Kenneth Heckler conducted extensive interviews documenting Göring's evolving recognition of American industrial superiority. "I knew American industrial potential was great," Göring finally admitted to Heckler, "but the execution exceeded my worst fears completely. That single factory at Willow Run produced more aircraft than our entire bomber force at peak strength. It was simply incomprehensible." He expressed particular astonishment at American logistics capabilities. "Your ability to supply forces across 2 oceans while maintaining domestic production levels astounded us. This was completely beyond our conception. We couldn't adequately supply forces 500 miles from Germany. You supplied entire armies 5,000 miles from America without difficulty." During his trial at Nuremberg, prosecutors presented Göring with overwhelming evidence of American production superiority. Charts showed America producing more aircraft monthly by 1944 than Germany managed annually. Films of Willow Run's assembly lines played, while prosecutors listed German cities destroyed by bombers from that single factory. Göring's March 14, 1946 testimony revealed his struggle to comprehend the scale. "I believe the economic and technical potential of the United States to be unusually great," he testified reluctantly, particularly regarding the Air Force. "But I never imagined they could increase aircraft production 100-fold in 4 years. Such growth seemed physically impossible." Prison psychologist G.M. Gilbert documented Göring's obsession with production statistics during his confinement. He repeatedly calculated ratios, comparing single American factories to entire German production capabilities. He seemed particularly fixated on Willow Run, calling it that damned factory that broke our backs completely. When shown that America had produced 812,615 aircraft engines versus Germany's 241,675, Göring simply stared at the figures in complete silence. The mathematical reality of total defeat was absolutely undeniable. The transformation's scope remains staggering even by today's standards. From 3,611 military aircraft in 1940, America produced 295,959 by war's end. This included 97,010 bombers, 99,465 fighters, and 98,684 other aircraft types. This represented not just quantity but systemic superiority in every aspect of production management. 2 million Americans worked in aircraft production at peak capacity. This included unprecedented workforce diversity. Women, African Americans, Mexican Americans, Native Americans, disabled workers, teenagers, and elderly citizens all contributed. This democratic mobilization achieved what totalitarian command could never accomplish. Voluntary cooperation exceeded forced labor's output by every possible metric. The workforce entering factories in 1941, knowing nothing about aircraft, emerged in 1945 as the world's most skilled aviation workers. They didn't just build planes efficiently. They revolutionized manufacturing itself permanently. Statistical quality control developed for bomber production became standard industrial practice worldwide. Automation principles pioneered at Willow Run transformed global manufacturing forever. The engineers who designed bomber assembly lines later designed the Saturn V rocket. The women who riveted B-24s raised children who eventually walked on the moon. The production miracle didn't end with victory. It launched the American century of global dominance. The financial dimensions defied all economic orthodoxy of the time. Aircraft production consumed $45 billion in 1940s dollars. This equals approximately $800 billion in today's purchasing power. The B-29 program alone cost more than the Manhattan Project's atomic bomb development. Yet rather than bankrupting America, war production created unprecedented national prosperity. Unemployment, which had plagued the entire Depression decade, vanished completely. Personal income doubled between 1940 and 1945 for average families. War bond sales by workers themselves financed much of the industrial expansion. Willow Run workers alone purchased $45 million in bonds, effectively funding their own factories' operations. Germany conversely consumed 40% of its entire industrial capacity for aircraft production by 1944. Yet they produced less than half of American output, despite this massive commitment. Slave labor increasingly relied upon proved catastrophically counterproductive in every way. Sabotage was endemic throughout the system. Quality collapsed under these conditions. Productivity per German worker actually declined after 1943. American productivity increased 300% during the same period through voluntary cooperation and improved methods. The production infrastructure built for war became the foundation for post-war prosperity throughout America. Aluminum smelters built for bombers produced materials for suburban housing construction. Chemical plants that manufactured aviation fuel created plastics for consumer goods. Machine tool factories that equipped aircraft plants tooled up American industry for global dominance. Beyond raw production numbers lay organizational excellence unmatched anywhere. The War Production Board coordinated 184,000 companies seamlessly across the continent. IBM punch card machines tracked millions of components across thousands of suppliers. MIT's radiation laboratory employed 4,000 scientists developing navigation systems. These gave American bombers all-weather capability German aircraft never possessed. When combat revealed B-17 vulnerability to frontal attacks, Boeing added chin turrets within 60 days. When Pacific operations required extended range, consolidated modified B-24s without stopping production lines. German modifications required months or years of development. American improvements took mere weeks to implement. This adaptability proved as decisive as production volume in determining victory. American aircraft evolved continuously based on global combat experience from every theater. Information flowed from Pacific battles to Atlantic production lines within days. German aircraft produced in isolated underground facilities by slave labor remained static throughout the war. American designs improved weekly based on pilot feedback. The feedback loop between combat and production achieved unprecedented efficiency levels. Pilot observations reached engineers immediately through direct communication channels. Engineering solutions reached assembly lines within days of development. Assembly line worker suggestions reached designers directly without bureaucratic interference. This democratic flow of information proved superior to German hierarchical command structures. On October 15, 1946, hours before his scheduled execution, Hermann Göring wrote his final letter. In it, he made his most complete admission of the production war's true significance. The Americans won through industrial power, not military prowess alone. We were not defeated by better soldiers, but by better factories. The nation we dismissed as capable only of building consumer goods buried the Wehrmacht under aluminum and steel. His last recorded statement to Gilbert was equally revealing about the war's reality. We declared war on an industrial giant while it slept peacefully. When it awoke, we were completely doomed. They didn't just outproduce us in simple numbers. They revolutionized production itself in ways we couldn't match. Every aspect of their system proved superior to ours in practice. Göring committed suicide that same night, but his final testimony stands as history's verdict on the production war's outcome. The Reichsmarshal, who had dismissed American capabilities, died knowing a single American factory exceeded his entire Air Force's lifetime production. Military historians universally consider the American production achievement the decisive factor in Allied victory. Without the overwhelming material superiority it provided, D-Day would have been impossible to execute. The strategic bombing campaign would have been unsustainable. The Pacific War would have been completely unwinnable against Japanese forces. Richard Overy, the leading historian of the air war, concluded definitively. The outcome was determined not by fighting spirit or tactical brilliance alone. Victory came through the sheer weight of material superiority. The Allies won because they buried their enemies under an avalanche of production. The numbers support this assessment absolutely and completely. By 1944, America alone was producing more military aircraft than the rest of the world combined, both Axis and Allied nations. This wasn't incremental superiority, but order of magnitude dominance in every category. Germany faced not mere defeat, but complete obliteration through industrial power. Yet the production miracle's significance transcended simple military victory over fascism. It proved democracy's superiority to dictatorship conclusively. Freedom's advantage over tyranny became mathematically demonstrable. Voluntary cooperation's strength exceeded forced obedience by every measure. The workers who achieved this transformation weren't slaves or conscripts, but free citizens united in common purpose. Hermann Göring's dismissal of American production capacity stands as history's most catastrophic miscalculation. His contempt for democratic industrial potential cost Germany the war and millions of lives unnecessarily. His failure to recognize American capabilities sealed the Third Reich's fate before the first bomber reached German skies. The transformation from 3,000 to 100,000 aircraft annually demonstrated that free societies facing existential threats could achieve the truly impossible. American workers didn't just meet Roosevelt's impossible goal of 50,000 planes annually. They doubled it while simultaneously fighting across the Pacific Ocean. They didn't just match German production levels. They exceeded it fivefold while maintaining quality standards. Today's leaders would benefit from remembering Göring's fundamental mistake. Dismissing democratic nations as weak because they prefer peace invites catastrophic miscalculation. Underestimating free people's productive capacity because they choose prosperity over conquest leads to strategic disasters. America in 1940 appeared completely unprepared for modern warfare. By 1944, it had become an unstoppable industrial colossus, dominating global production. The arsenal of democracy proved that production lines could be as decisive as front lines in determining victory. Assembly workers could be as crucial as combat soldiers. Industrial mobilization could determine victory as surely as military strategy and tactics. Göring learned this lesson far too late, at the cost of his nation's complete destruction. From his dismissive reaction to Roosevelt's announcement in May 1940 to his execution at Nuremberg in October 1946, Hermann Göring's journey traced the arc of Nazi Germany's total destruction. His contempt for American production became the epitaph for the Third Reich, a regime that confused ideology with actual capability, that mistook tyranny for genuine strength, that believed racial mythology could overcome industrial mathematics. The Reichsmarshal, who dismissed American aircraft production, died knowing that American factories had produced more planes in 1944 alone than Germany managed throughout the entire war. His mockery of democratic industrial capacity became history's most expensive joke. The cost was paid in the currency of total defeat and national destruction. America produced 295,959 military aircraft during the war. Germany produced 94,627 total. But the real victory lay not in raw numbers but in production methods. This proved that free workers could consistently outproduce slaves. Democratic cooperation could exceed totalitarian command in every category. A nation of immigrants and diverse citizens could unite to achieve the impossible when faced with existential threat. The B-24 bombers rolling off Willow Run's assembly line every 63 minutes weren't just aircraft. They were democracy's answer to tyranny made manifest. Each rivet was driven by a woman who had been a housewife months earlier. Each engine was built by a teenager who had left high school to serve. Each wing was assembled by workers who had fled poverty and discrimination. All proved that free peoples, when united in righteous cause, could bury tyranny under an avalanche of production. Hermann Göring laughed at the idea of America producing 50,000 planes annually. America responded by producing twice that number, transforming global history in the process. His laughter echoes through history as the sound of catastrophic miscalculation. The fatal dismissal of democracy's arsenal by a man who understood neither democracy nor production. In the end, both concepts buried him and everything he represented under 300,000 aircraft. They turned his contempt into history's most complete defeat through the simple power of free people working together.